Hello and welcome to Smaulgld. In case you missed it, top gold, silver, and crypto stories for the week ended May 20th, 2018. New York Crypto Conference fails to provide price boost, even though Twitter boss Jack Dorsey was there pumping Bitcoin at Consensus 2018. However, plenty of news in the crypto space. Bitcoin to get high-speed trading via Coinbase. Second largest German stock exchange is going to begin actual crypto trading. And Trump tweets, storms, and slams direction of Mueller probe. We're going to discuss the latest developments in the Mueller-Trump feud. The Inspector General's report on the FBI and DOJ handling of the Clinton email criminal investigation apparently is ready and should be made public in a couple of weeks. That will not include, there'll be a separate Inspector General's report on the FBI DOJ handling of the Trump-Russia investigation. The dollar continues to rise and gold and silver fell during the week. Russia and China add treasuries to reserves in March. Congress pressures the DOJ, FBI, and the president for documents. And Smaulgld had a busy week, was on Silver Doctors and Salivate Metals, those channels during the week. Also, Moronica is up. Moronica is on BitChute and YouTube this week. Normally it's just on BitChute, so check that out. Not only is there Moronica Criminal Nagging, is the Moronica of the week, but there also are some outtakes. So there's two Moronicas for those of you fans of that program. Now let's take a look at the prices of gold and silver during the week. They both fell. Gold actually fell a bit more, and that has brought the gold-silver ratio down below 80 for the first time in a few weeks. However, silver buffs are not interested in the gold-silver ratio falling if both gold and silver fall. When people talk about the gold-silver ratio falling, they are talking about or hoping for an increase in the price of silver that exceeds an increase in the price of gold. And that's something I talked about on my interview with Silver Doctors, that generally, for those who follow the precious metals, gold generally rises significantly, and then silver plays catch up and then eventually exceeds it, but for a brief shining moment, and then falls back. But we'll see what happens this time if indeed we do get a continued rise in the price of gold, although we're below 1,300, so maybe we won't get that. Not sure. Now, Smaulgld on Salivate Metal. You can check that out, and you can also check out Smaulgld on Silver Doctors. They're on the Smaulgld blog post. You can see everything on the Smaulgld site. Go to smaulgld.com. You can see the charts better. You can see the links better. You can click on the links. You can do your own research. And there's also the YouTubes are there as well, and the BitChutes. Just some quick points during the week. Fed policy. People are the issue with housing prices having risen because of Fed policy. Everyone talks about that, the low interest rates, but few people talk about the Fed policy that creates this mania for these companies like Tesla, which was in Moronica this week, who get these massive PE, not even PE, just massive valuations based on no earnings. And that leads to a bunch of executives at those companies and relatively high-level employees, lots of them in the thousands, who receive stock options and basically work at companies that make no profit, and yet they make millions, and therefore they're able to buy these houses that are being pushed up in Seattle, San Francisco, New York, and other places where you have the bubble in tech stocks. Dave Collins mentioned he went on an antiquing spree. This, I believe, is a very insightful point he made. He said that the median end market for American furniture, $500 to $5,000, it's an industry-wide depression. Can't give the stuff away. You could fill your house with 18th to 19th century stuff for less than chrome and particle board. Now, there's a reason for that. It's a demographic. It's the old Harry Dent. Baby boomers get older. They sell their stocks, and that's, according to him, is going to create an issue. I think it's beyond just baby boomers demographics selling stocks. They're also dishoarding their physical items. They could have coin collections. They can have furniture. They can have a lot of things. And that would be problematic enough, the selling of those items, but there's no market for them, I guess, is what Mr. Collins is saying, because I believe that millennials have no interest in these items. They don't collect silverware. They don't collect coins. They don't collect stamps. They don't collect furniture. They basically are a digital generation. And besides being a digital generation, they also have less money. So I can understand what he saw when he went on his New England antiquing spree. Yeah, millennials aren't buying the stuff because they either don't want it or can't afford it. Now, online gambling ban was ruled unconstitutional. Unbelievable. What were the odds of that happening? As the Supreme Court removes the gambling ban, but I think that creates an opportunity for these cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Litecoin, and so on, because you can use those on those gambling sites. For those of you who are always claiming dollar collapse, end of dollar hegemony, well, the dollar hegemoned higher as the gold-backed yuan failed to dent the advance. There is no gold-backed yuan, never was. Analysts say game changer as gold extends slide to push below 1,300, and the 10-year yield cleared 3% and the dollar rallied. Chinese yuan and other emerging market currencies are hurting after the dollar hegemons higher on a game-changing move. Analysts consulting Sun Tzu for the next 4D chess explanation for upcoming newsletters. So there's no shortage of explanations as to why the dollar is not collapsing and why the yuan isn't soaring. But the reality is the dollar is going higher and the yuan is not. And of course, there was reports during the week that in March, China's holding of U.S. Treasuries rose to a 5-month high. That's something I've been reporting on for the past 14 months. This dollar collapse, Chinese dumping Treasuries, Russia's dumping Treasuries, BRICS have had it with the dollar, dumping Treasuries. It's not true. They may be trying to form other ways of payment, but they're not dumping their reserves. They're actually increasing their U.S. reserves. Just something to consider when you hear dumping Treasuries, end of dollar hegemony. Russia added U.S. Treasuries in March. Game changer. Russia now has $96 billion in U.S. Treasuries, which is more than they hold in their massive gold hoard. That gold hoard that they have, that's nearly, I'll report on it tomorrow. They've added even more gold. They're over 1,900 tons, but still, it's only worth about $85 billion. They have more in U.S. Treasuries. And Russia really has no need, Russia would ostensibly have no reason to hold dollars since it's under sanctions with the U.S. It doesn't have any trade with the U.S. And that's why it's buying gold. But still, it has more U.S. Treasuries than gold. And for you dollar collapsers who pay absolutely no attention to, they pay close attention to the U.S. debt situation, but never pay any attention to the Chinese debt situation. But the Chinese debt is growing much faster than all of the U.S., ECB, Bank of England, Swiss, the rest combined by multiple of 5 times, perhaps. Now, Manafort, Mueller, Comey, Page, Brennan, the FBI, this is all coming to a head, and we are starting to see the hunted become the hunter. The hunted becoming the hunter, which is Donald Trump. This has gone on for a long time. It is obvious to me, now I try to look at everything objectively, irrespective of my point of view. And one thing that whether I like gold or silver, I do not pump either of them, or Bitcoin, or like, if I don't like them, I don't bash them. I try to report on them objectively. What I have been seeing over the last year and a half has been a severe hatred of Trump and really basically a cheering on of the Mueller investigation. The people that are cheering on are not questioning the basis for it. They're cheering it on because they want the result. I've seen constitutional scholars, people who supposedly are intelligent, objective. They don't care. Their view is to get Trump, and that is obvious about what's happening in the Mueller probe, what the scope of it is, the tactics that they've used. And what's really fascinating, again, if you look at it objectively, there's so much to go after if you wish to on the Democrat side with the DNC, with the all things that Trump has been saying, and Trump gets, in some areas, no hearing because they figure, well, he's Trump, he's a liar, we don't like him. So no matter what he says, even if it's true, we're not going to listen to him. But I've looked at this thing objectively over the past year, and it's clear to me, and this isn't a political statement, it's clear to me that they are out to get Trump when really it looks like what they've done is they're trying to cover up their tracks on how they basically exonerated Hillary Clinton and then decided to go after Donald Trump for this Russian collusion. If there really was Russian collusion, the way to do it, the way to go after that was not just to attack Trump, was to have a congressional investigation into Russian interference in the U.S. election, and that would involve interviewing not just Trump people, and it would be Hillary Clinton people, Bernie Sanders people, Jill Stein people, and they would really try to get to the bottom of what Russia indeed might have been up to. Instead, they're going after Paul Manafort for things that he did in the Ukraine in 2004. It really shows that they're not interested in Russian collusion, because Russian collusion isn't even a crime. The crime, or the issue is whether a foreign power is trying to meddle in the U.S. elections, and the way to go about it is not to go after Mike Flynn or Cohen, the lawyer, and raid his house. So they really wanted information on Russian collusion. There's also plenty of it to look at on the Uranium One side. On the Hillary Clinton side, there's talk that actually Jill Stein did some actual discussions with Russians. So you can tell, or at least I can tell, that this is a biased investigation, and we will see when the Inspector General's report comes out whether the sources and methods that the FBI used in the Hillary Clinton investigation and in the Trump-Russia investigation were actually the way things should be. And clearly to me, I'm not going to go into all the things that Comey did during the Hillary Clinton investigation. None of them were not orthodox. They betrayed a bias, and they were definitely not looking to perform a criminal investigation. It seemed clear they were trying to exonerate her. The DOJ was involved in that. They said use the language that the Hillary Clinton campaign used, call it a matter, not a criminal investigation. And in the criminal investigation, they never gathered all the evidence and that they needed to gather. They still haven't received the DNC server. They didn't do any raids. They gave immunity to people to get stuff. They got nothing back in return. They exonerated Hillary Clinton before she had her interview. McCabe was the guy leading it. He was his wife and his big buddies with the Clintons. So none of this really seems to me, just objectively looking at it, that these investigations were anything but politically motivated and incorrectly and improperly run. And we'll see what the Inspector General report says about all this, who supposedly is a impartial person that is looking into all this and has produced the first report. Now, there's some interesting things going on. There's some people who think that Sessions is playing dumb so that he can just sit back and say, we let this thing run its course. He recused himself. Rosenstein is running the investigation. Mueller is reporting to him. Rosenstein is the deputy attorney general. And the issue with Rosenstein is he signed off on some of the FISA warrants. So how can he even be appointing, without a conflict, Mueller to look into this when he was an actual witness and participant in the Russian collusion investigation? So I think by not allowing by Sessions and Rosenstein stonewalling Congress, they don't want the Republican, if this is a theory, Trump doesn't want the Republican Congress to uncover this. They basically want the Inspector General's report, which is impartial, to uncover what happened. And then I think the documents will come over. Because if Trump really wanted to, and he wanted the Republicans to have these documents, with a stroke of a pen, he can issue an order and have the documents declassified. So I think he wants to appear as, look, you took your best shot. Everyone came at me. They presented their evidence. And you know, when the coup fails against the king, well, you're pretty much done. And we're already seeing, I don't think people understand the significance of the fact that Comey is gone, McCabe is gone, Page has left, Strzok has been demoted to HR personnel. So basically you got Rod Rosenstein acting as U.S. attorney, and I don't think that's going to last, but I think Trump has been smart not to fire anybody other than Comey and has left these people in place and see how it goes. Now, Mueller may have a conflict, and no, that's the other thing, is that there are, if you dig deeper, there seems to be more collusion and more potential collusion and more conflicts on the Mueller, Comey, Clinton side than they do on the Trump. And then you have Brennan, Clapper, all these people running the CIA, the NSA. Brennan said that there was no surveillance on the Trump tower, that the Steele dossier wasn't used. And now it's all coming out. Yes, there was surveillance on the Trump tower, that they did use the Steele dossier, even though Comey admitted that the Steele dossier wasn't verified. So that, if you just put the shoe on the other foot, you would say this is outrageous that they're actually getting a FISA warrant, and then Sally Yates signed off on a warrant, Comey signed off on one, Rod Rosenstein signed off on one, and then we learned this week that they also had a plant inside the campaign. We talked about that in Veronica earlier today, to spy on the Trump campaign. So clearly, this was instructed by probably the sitting president, to see what Trump was up to. Now, they may have legitimately believed, maybe not, this may be a political ruse, but let's say they legitimately believed, honestly held belief, that somehow Trump was a Russian plant. They still didn't have the evidence for it. It was just a belief. So everything that's coming out, they just still haven't shown any evidence of any type of collusion. So it's surprising they managed to continue to get the warrants based on the dossier. Now you can see here the Meadows, the Freedom Caucus, Republican parties constantly asking for documents. They're not getting them. They're threatening to impeach Rosenstein and even Sessions. And again, Trump can end this. I think he's watching this gleefully, because if he really wanted, he can get these documents and instruct he doesn't want to do it, doesn't want the appearance of doing that, doesn't want the appearance of interfering. He wants it to run its course, but the Republicans are pressuring. And I think it's good theater, because it'll show eventually, if the Inspector General's report, who has seen the documents, will report on them, that Congress was on the right track, or at least the Republicans in Congress were on the right track in trying to get this information. And they will never get as much information probably as the Inspector General has had. Then we also learned about Crossfire Hurricane. What's interesting, we learned about Crossfire Hurricane, which was the original name of the Russian probe set up by the FBI, but very secretive. They never told the Congress that they were doing this. They didn't tell many people in the FBI. And what's interesting is, how does the New York Times know about this? It's very clear that the FBI, CIA use the New York Times and the Washington Post as mouthpiece. So you have to look at these things and say, when they report on these, where do they get the information? It's always sources, always sources. And we saw that from the beginning with the dossier. They reported on the dossier. They wanted to get that out there. Comey met with Trump to tell him about it. Even though they knew it was fake, they needed that out there to undermine him, to make it look like, yes, there is something and it's potential. The Russians could be blackmailing you about this. Russian prostitutes peeing on the bed. You can't make this stuff up, but apparently they did. So we're going to see that Inspector General report in the next couple of weeks, and we'll figure out what happens. Now, the other thing is, all along, if you follow this, we've been talking about indicting a sitting president. Indicting a sitting president is not something that can be done. There's a DOJ memo that says they can't do it. And the reason for that is that a president is an elected official. And if you can allow just a rogue, or even not a rogue, but just a political opponent to get a special counsel appointed, you can remove the president. The idea is the president is an elected official. And if you want to get rid of him, you go through your elected officials to get rid of him. And you do that through the impeachment process, not through indictment. So then the question is, what is all this about? Well, this is really about impeachment. This is to have a Robert Mueller pull up information and evidence that will convince people that Trump is no good and that he needs to be impeached. They need to find some crime. They won't indict him for it. And also the hope is that his popularity dives. And if his popularity dives, then impeachment is relatively easy. No politician, no senator who votes in favor of impeaching him and removing him from office is going to suffer the consequences if they remove an unpopular president. I think that was the hope. I don't think that's going to happen right now. Not that Trump is wildly popular. He's wildly unpopular with about 35-40% of the people. He's wildly popular with about 33% of the people. And I think the rest of the people in the middle, they're not itching to get rid of him. They're not in love with him. But I don't think they have the support to just impeach him just because. And I don't think they have anything serious on him, because I think they would have already laid out the charges. The idea that they indicted a Russian troll farm that doesn't exist, and that they indicted a Russian troll farm that they're not prepared to prosecute, because when the troll farm showed up and said, okay, we're here, they said, well, we can't really begin the proceedings. And the judge said, why not? And they said, we haven't properly served them. They said, like, hell you didn't, we're here, so we must know about this, so show us what you got. And it looks like that was done for political reasons, just to show that they actually had something on Russia. But now they don't seem to be willing or able to prosecute that case. And again, we're going to have that Inspector General report. Now, of course, there's leaks already. I don't know how this happens, but they're saying now the Inspector General report will declare FBI DOJ broke law on the Clinton email probe. That's pretty obvious to me. How she got away with what she did on just by saying she didn't mean to. I mean, she's not a stupid woman. you're running the Secretary of State, you're a New York Senator, you're married to the President, you kind of understand that you don't put a server for convenience in your, and then run the Clinton Foundation out of the State Department, and then smash all of your, and delete 33,000 emails because you didn't mean to hide anything. So that seems very odd that she basically got a pass on that, and that Trump is being persecuted basically for something that's a whisper, and so far hasn't shown out to be anything. There's no defined evidence that he did anything or anyone in his campaign did anything. Now they're looking at, again, as I go from hunted to hunter, the Republicans are looking to call for full financial audit of the Mueller probe. Now the Mueller probe apparently has 19 Democratic, not that the party affiliation means everything. A lot of people say, well, a lot of these people that are against Trump are Republicans. I don't think it matters whether you're Republican or Democrat, but it does seem odd that there's 19 of them and there's not one Republican. But the real issue is, it's not that there's 19 of them that are Democrats. I think most of them had donated to Hillary Clinton. So that's the big deal. And what are they spending their money on? What is the probe about? What did Rosenstein tell Mueller he was allowed to do in the first place? Then there was another memo. They're keeping all of that hidden. So what exactly, normally when you have a special prosecutor, there is a specified crime that you need to go look for. And first of all, collusion is not a crime. But second of all, what is the crime that the special prosecutor is looking at, and what is the scope of his powers? It seems to be unlimited. And here's Trump on his tweet storm saying things are getting ridiculous to failing and crooked, but not as crooked as Hillary Clinton has done a long and boring story that the world's most expensive witch hunt has found nothing on Russia and me. So now they're looking at the rest of the world, and it appears to be what they're doing. At what point does the soon $20 million witch hunt composed of 13 angry and heavily convicted Democrats, 2 people who worked for Obama for 8 years, stop? They have found no collusion with Russia, no obstruction, but they aren't looking at corruption in the Hillary Clinton campaign, where she deleted 32,000 emails and got $145 million while Secretary of State, that's the Clinton Foundation, paid McCabe's wife $700 large and got off the FBI hook with Terry McAuliffe. And so much more. Republicans and real Americans should be start getting tough on this scam. Now that the witch hunt has given up on Russia and is looking at the rest of the world, they should easily be able to take it to the midterm elections where they could put some hair in the Republican Party. Don't worry about Dems' FISA abuse, missing emails, and fraudulent dossier. Well, he's saying that, but the Inspector General report is worried about that, and we'll report on that shortly. I think he's just putting this to front of mind. Again, he's acting like he's powerless, and he can't do anything about this. So he's portraying himself as the victim while making his case, but not making his move. Whatever happened to the server at the center of the corruption? Well, you would think about it. If they really wanted that server, and they're really going to investigate Russian investigation, they wouldn't take the word of the Democratic National Convention's third-party company that said it was hacked by the Russians. They'd take a look at it themselves. And if the Democrats didn't give it to them, they should have raided their offices, guns drawn, and gotten that server. If it truly was an issue of national security with the Russians. But again, as Comey said, they wanted to downplay the Russian involvement if Hillary won because they did not want her presidency to be tainted by either Russian interference, or that she wasn't fully exonerated from her email. So clearly, Comey was working to make sure that Hillary had a clean bill of health. Yes, maybe they never wanted to see that server, because maybe it showed that the Russians didn't hack it. And why hasn't the Podesta brother been charged and arrested like others after being forced to close down his very large and sexual firm? Now, he was named in a lot of these, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but apparently he was involved with Manafort and all these overseas things, and he's right, no one has ever bothered them. Now, this guy, Avenatti, he is the attorney for Stormy Daniels, as if that's the most important thing going on in the country. And some of the media outlets like to spend a lot of attention on it. He somehow got Cohen's financial information. He probably got it from the documents that were raided, and how he got it, who knows. And he's saying that he's allowed to release it based on the First Amendment. Ironically, he's also saying that people that are criticizing him, he's going to sue them. And of course, that's a First Amendment issue too. They can just as easily argue that he is at the center of a controversy. He is a public figure, and he's going to have to show malice, or that what they're saying is untrue, in order to prove his case. So he just seems to be out there grabbing a lot of attention with this First Amendment. That why he would even have Cohen's documents is beyond me. Moving on to China. China and gold-backed yuan. All the gold pumpers, they love China. They don't really care. China's issuing social credits to 1.4 billion people, which will form the basis of whether they can fly, get on public transport. Basically, a total surveillance state. They also like, so the United States is no better. Yes, it is. The United States does have a Bill of Rights. Yes, there's surveillance in the U.S. There's nothing stopping the president for life in China from doing whatever he wants. And just because China has gold, the gold pumpers somehow believe that China is their gold buddy. China's housing bubble. That's what China's been really supporting its economy. Building housing, getting their citizens to buy housing, loaning money for housing, building real estate projects that are uneconomical and never get filled up. And they've been trying to transition their economy away from that, but nothing gives you the pop to your GNP and your employment numbers like building houses, lending money and building houses, building cheap houses no one will ever move into, no company will ever occupy. And then a lot of the Chinese gold pumpers will say, yes, but they're productive. They've got all this infrastructure that even if the world collapses, they still have. Not realizing that having infrastructure, excess infrastructure, in an economic collapse is 100% useless, because if there's an economic collapse, there's no need for it. And besides, it now becomes a burden. You have to upkeep, if it's going to be valuable at some point, you're going to have to upkeep the infrastructure. And if you're not using it, why would you pay to upkeep it? And that's going to cost money. And why would you if you own a project that's not making money, and now you're in an economic collapse and you know it won't make money for years, if ever, you're just going to abandon it. And then what does that mean? It's going to further your economic collapse, because now you're not going to pay the state-owned bank to lend you money to you, the state-owned entity that built the items at the direction of the Chinese government. And here's China's world. The other thing they bold people always, oh, China's going to end dollar hegemony. U.S. is the evil in the world with military intervention. Okay, that all may be true, but they make it sound like China is just peace and prosperity. China unleashes island encirclement war drills over China. So China is also a war-capable country. It does have military hardware. It's also a debt monster just like the U.S. It just seems that they only look at the evils of the U.S. and they don't look at the potential evils of China. I think that's a lot to do with a lot of the gold pumpers over the last 10 years have really focused on hating the United States, hating the Federal Reserve, hating the U.S. military, hating Hillary Clinton, Obama, and they've created this idea that China is their gold buddy. They really don't. So here's something which is interesting. Now, this is not just like the United States. According to the Associated Press, worse than prison, a rare look inside China's secret re-education centers in Yanjing. Okay, that basically is for Muslims, and China believes that they need to abandon their religion. So they have re-education centers. Now, I haven't heard that the U.S. has re-education centers in the U.S. Maybe they're called colleges, but you aren't forced to go to college. Maybe it's worse. You have to borrow money to go to them, but it's not the same thing. When they try to say with a straight face, the U.S. has the same surveillance state that China has, the U.S. has re-education camps, wrongo star. Now, according to a Chinese news outlet, this is official news, China must remain alert to threat of financial crisis because the financial risk facing China is far larger than the official numbers suggest. So the official Chinese news outlet says that China faces a risk bigger than the official news outlet says, because the official numbers are actually worse than they say they are. Gold, back yuan, end of dollar hegemony. Now, what's this? Iran. What's going on in Iran's another good. The gold people really like Iran because now they're going to buy gold because of sanctions. If Europeans stop trading with Iran and don't put pressure on the U.S., we will then reveal which which Western politicians and how much money they had received during the nuclear negotiations to make the Iran deal happening. Now, we haven't heard that. The Iran deal is not happening, but we haven't heard Iran pull through on that threat to basically say who got money on the Obama side to make the deal go through. That just could be a bunch of nonsense. Who knows? But here's Venezuela. Conoco has seized Venezuela PDV products from East Oil Refinery. So basically, there are more troubles in Venezuela. But Venezuela seized Kellogg's cereal factory after it closed. See, can you buy cereal with the gold back you on in Venezuela? Who knows? Cryptocurrencies, big week in cryptocurrencies. Coinbase rolls out crypto custody products for institutions. We also mentioned they're going to have a high-speed trading project. Lots of stuff going on that is intended to bring in institutional investment into the space. Lots of funds looking to get interested or looking to get involved in these cryptocurrencies. But during the week, you had the largest ever consensus cryptocurrency conference, Consensus 2018, and it was not a flop, but in terms of the price, it was a flop because normally the last 4 years the conference has gotten bigger and bigger, and after the conference the price of cryptocurrencies generally is 30-40%. This year it did not. Actually, it spiked about 10% right at the start of the conference and then fell and did not provide a boost to the prices of cryptocurrencies. Now, Coinbase is also looking to upgrade its GDAX systems and cater to ultra-fast traders, which would make Coinbase one of the first Bitcoin exchanges to welcome high-speed trading. Germany's second biggest stock exchange launches crypto trading. That's in Stuttgart. Very interesting indeed. Ethereum, CME Group, which is the one that's the COMEX owner, they've introduced some Ethereum reference rates, so you're definitely getting some institutional interest in Ethereum. Also, Litecoin, the Winklevoss brothers, they're adding to their Gemini exchange Zcash, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash. And there the two twins are very rich gentlemen. Sports betting we mentioned is happening, and it's now been deemed, the ban has been deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. Charlie Lee, who is he? Well, he's the guy who invented Litecoin. He's saying a lot of good news coming down the pike, but this is a marathon, not a sprint. He's got a deal for Litecoin to integrate Litecoin into a company called TapJets, which is one of these, you rent private jets, and they're going to be accepting Litecoin, and he's working on making that happen by June 1st. So there's the Bitcoin pump at the beginning of consensus. It went all the way up to 87.75, and then it dropped down to 8,000. Back up today, it's about 85.50. So who knows what drives the price of these things, whether it's volume, hash rate, news, conferences. I think it just goes up and down. But here's interesting. Florida tax collector to accept Bitcoin Cash payments. We're seeing some of that now in a lot of the states, accepting a lot of the arguments against cryptocurrencies. Well, you can't pay your taxes with it. Well, yeah, you can in some places. HTC, that's a Chinese company, plans to ship a blockchain phone this year. Very interesting. Coinbase, so we've already discussed that. There's that bounce that didn't happen from the consensus 2018. I was told there'd be a consensus pump, but didn't happen. All right. And now a lot of Bitcoin pumps. So here's Jamie Dimon fraud. We covered this in Veronica early today. JP Morgan has asked a 29-year-old high flyer to drop cryptocurrency strategy. We've already seen Goldman Sachs involved through a company called Circle. They're a partial investor. They own Poloniex, one of the larger cryptocurrency exchanges. CME Group, we mentioned this, partners to launch Ethereum reference rate, and there's the reference rate. This woman, I think her name is Brainerd. I guess her name. She was going to be appointed, I think, if Clinton won, they would have made her the Fed head. She says no compelling case for Fed digital currency. Okay, no Fed coin, I suppose. This guy is generally pretty smart. He's on the Fed. His name is Neil Kashkari. He is against Bitcoin. He basically is saying that, well, he's responding to Joe Weisenthal, who is the stalwart. He says, I find debating crypto fans, I think it means crypto, is like debating anti-vaxxers. You just don't get it. That's true. A lot of Bitcoin people tell you don't get it. You could get it and not like it. There's a difference between not getting it and the difference between getting it and not liking it and not thinking it was worth anything. Or you must be lying. No amount of, or a lot of people say when somebody's against Bitcoin, another one they say is that, oh, they're just saying it because they want to drive the price down so they can buy more. Okay. No amount of data or logic is ever convincing. I think the results in harsher message delivery since it won't be heard. Anyway, well, that's his opinion. It's not unreasonable. Bitcoin, now Goldman saying they're going to issue a cryptocurrency that's dollar-based. I don't know, that sounds like Tether to me, but we'll see. Sharps Pixley, major gold dealer in London, offering to convert gold back into Bitcoin with BitPay. Well, that'd be interesting. So you buy Maybe you bought your gold with cash, fiat, or you bought your pounds, or maybe you bought with Bitcoin, and now you want to turn your gold into Bitcoin. Sharps-Pixley is going to allow you to do that. Thailand seems to have a favorable legal framework. Now, this people get mad about, or they sell on this. One of the reasons that cryptocurrencies went down last week was because the EU is basically saying, look, to the exchanges, you can't just have people buying and selling on your exchange and not know who the hell they are. Now, a lot of people who like crypto say, I don't want anyone to know who I am, and that's why I buy crypto. The thing, though, is that when you buy stocks, bonds, bank accounts, you give up that information, and it's commonplace. And more people, I'm not saying this is good or bad, but more people are used to giving up their information, and that actually would make cryptos more mainstream if they were traded and treated like those accounts just like stock accounts, bank accounts. Now, there are those who don't want that to happen. That goes totally against the whole ethos of Bitcoin. Well, those people, they can always trade on decentralized exchange. They can trade peer-to-peer. But the point is that mainstream adoption requires these types of regulations. They're actually, I would think, bullish more than bearish to Bitcoin. And here you go. That's what I've been saying for years. United States regulators say they want to avoid hindering innovation. They just want to regulate the hell out of this stuff. They want ICOs to be registered with them. They want the exchanges to be registered with them. They want banks to bring these things, financial professionals to bring these things to market. They want the fees. They want the control. They don't want to throw this. They don't want to ban this stuff. They want to regulate it. And they're granting licenses. And you know, they're going to do just like they do with the banks. You know who's going to get the licenses? The big companies, the big exchanges, the ones that register, the ones that go register with the SEC, the ones that go public. They're the ones that are going to get the licenses. Okay, gold. Repeat gold, says Chairman of Gold Corp. No, he says all the major deposits have been discovered until they discover more. This is interesting. Ancient Rome's silver accession left on unlikely stain in Greenland's ice. They're trying to say, now this is well beyond my science knowledge, that they could tell what's in the ice in Greenland and how old the ice is. There's like this lead, and it's all they say based on smelting of Roman silver 2,000-3,000 years ago. Very, very interesting. This is an interesting one that Fernando Ortega, who's a Smaulgld subscriber, he's been on the show before the Smaulgld subscribers sound off. I put this out, even low concentrations of silver can foil wastewater treatment. He was saying, well, this could be a big deal, which would stop the, could potentially stop the proliferation of some of these silver products that end up in the water. He may be right. I don't think that those products are a big deal anyway in terms of silver demand. But you know, the same thing happens with prescription drugs. They end up in the water too, and they don't seem to ban those. But interesting that that's happening with the silver is giving false positives on the wastewater treatment and so on. Now, Bitcoin Pumper. You know, I do Bitcoin Pumper, goldpumper.com, silverpumper.com, Litecoin Pumper. They're always pumping these things. This one's for $50,000. I don't know, Bitcoin, why Bitcoin's going to $50,000, but there's always a reason. The only difference between the crypto pumpers, crypto haze, Bitcoin 50,000. The only difference between the crypto pumpers and the gold and silver pumpers is sometimes the crypto pumpers are right. These things really do skyrocket. But here, this is a good article. I'm not going to show it to you, but Motley Fool, 5 most ridiculous Bitcoin price targets. Let's see what happens. Here's a Bitcoin pumper. There's Jack Dorsey pumping Bitcoin at 2018 consensus. The internet needs a native currency, and Jack Dorsey wants to help it become Bitcoin. Gold pumper, which I call gold derangement syndrome. You know, I'm just trying to make, you know, I report on Russia's gold holdings. Yes, it's impressive, and yes, it's big, and it's almost 2,000 tons, but it's only worth $83 billion. Here's a new one. Gold preparing to launch. Never heard that one before. Gold's always ready to skyrocket. It's on the launching pad. So is silver. Here you go. Consolidation looks like a launching pad. Of course it does. It always does. It's always ready to skyrocket. And it just doesn't. But whatever happened to that never happened before commitment of traders, silver spike, virtually guaranteed pump story? Remember that one in March and April? Actually, to be fair, there was a small spike. Went up to about 17 something. Lasted about 2 or 3 days. So that probably was. But here you go. Silver coil tightening. Yes, the latest pump. The silver coil is tightening. Mike Maloney All these pumps. Now we have proof. This one is proof why silver's set to launch, set to skyrocket. Smuggling. We like to cover gold stories. This is not a very original one. 2 passengers arrested for smuggling 2 kilos of gold. That's a lot of gold in the rectum. Lost gold, hidden treasure, hunt for gold in Minerva. That's a very interesting story. I'm not going to cover it. Again, you can go to the Smaulgld site. Some of these stories I don't have time to cover. You can click on. Salivate Metal does cover some of them. I send them to him, but he can't cover them all either. So check out the Smaulgld site, at least for the links, and you can read the stories. I like this story. Couple find safe buried in their backyard full of money, gold, and jewelry, and it's not something from the 20s or the 30s or 100 years ago. It's basically a botched robbery from their neighbor about 100 years ago. And they managed to open the safe and find the neighbor's address in there and asked, hey, did you ever get robbed? And they said, yeah. Oh, there you go. They turned it in. Good neighbors. The Fed, final story here. This is interesting. Now, remember, the Fed added about $4.5 trillion worth of mortgage-backed securities and U.S. Treasury bonds, probably about equal measure. And as part of the raising rates and then normalizing the balance sheet, selling down the assets, they're looking to sell off the mortgage-backed bonds first. Makes total sense. There's no reason they should hold those anyway. Why should they be supporting the U.S. real estate market in any event? Well, that about does it for today. Thank you very much for listening. During the week, I'm going to have the Shanghai Gold Exchange April numbers and the Russian Central Bank numbers. Please join me for that. Please subscribe to Smaulgld. Subscribe to this BitChute YouTube channel. If you're interested in buying precious metals, consider doing that through the site. Smaulgld gets a small commission on Golden Eagle coins, SD Bullion, Money Metals Exchange. It's not an investment advice to buy or sell gold or silver. Or if you are going to buy, please consider buying through those links. And also please consider becoming a Smaulgld patron and donating a small or large amount every month, or consider donating to Smaulgld via PayPal, Bitcoin, and Litecoin. Thank you very much.